If the final Iron Skillet comes down to Jennings versus Hoover, advantage TCU. Oh yeah, it's locked on Horned Frogs. Play my music.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Horned Frogs podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything TCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, 817 Raised. And today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move, and Be Moved. Now, if you're on the video side, you see the shirt. For all of Dallas and Fort Worth, that's just what it's all about. SMU, TCU, the last battle for the Iron Skillet for the foreseeable future. I don't know when it's going to come back. It will come back. I just don't know when. But we're going to wrap up today's episode previewing it and looking at how SMU has been known to shoot themselves in the foot. And I think that they're going to give TCU many opportunities in this game. In segment 2, we're going to look at some of the pivotal matchups that will impact the sway of the game. However, if it comes down to one matchup, if it comes down to Josh Hoover versus Kevin Jennings, I believe that this is an advantage for TCU. So let's look at that pivotal matchup first things first. So at the end of the day, I think that this is a very likely situation. I know I've said this before. I don't know how many times, so maybe I should stop saying it. But, we're going to take it a pause. Today, we are going to say it, though. When we're talking about hypothetical situations, I try to only base those hypotheticals in realistic hypotheticals, right? I could say anything. I could say, what if pigs jump off the moon and land in Kansas? But at the end of the day, that's not happening. I do think that Josh Hoover versus Kevin Jennings being the deciding factor in the last Iron Skillet is a very realistic situation. I really do, because these are two quality teams. I know that SMU fell short against Baylor, and that was a heavy drop that they took after giving up that lead. But when I say drop, I'm talking about in the top 25 standings. So I don't know what happens after this if the winner jumps into the top 25, but I'm just going to evaluate these two teams for who they are on Saturday and not really look forward to what they could be Sunday afternoon. I think it's very realistic that it comes down to whose quarterback makes more plays. And I think that Jennings has a lot of talent, a lot of skills to use. I just think that Josh Hoover, in the mode he's in right now, versus the mode that Kevin Jennings is in right now, I think that Hoover gives me more reliability. He gives me more confidence. And honestly, he just gives me more steadiness. And that's why I think that if it comes down to Hoover versus Jennings, I'm taking Hoover. Now, if it's one play and I need a 80-yard bomb, who knows? It's a crapshoot then. But if it's on give me 15 minutes of the fourth quarter. Don't give me one specific play. Give me 15 minutes in the fourth quarter. I need Hoover to make a play. I need Jennings to make a play. Who do I have more confidence in? That advantage goes to the TCU quarterback, Josh Hoover, who has shown that he can be the engineer. He can be the conductor of an extremely steady and prolific offense. A lot of times when we say the word steady, it gets a negative connotation of he's just solid. He's a game manager. And we know how negative that connotation is. So a lot of times when you say someone's steady, it's not really impressive. It's just not bad. That's often how it's said. No, Josh Hoover has this at a steady, high clip. So let's go through the 15 drives. The 15 drives that TCU has had with their starting offense on the field, led by Josh Hoover. In these 15 drives, and shout out to Frog Insider, I believe that's the podcast I got it from, who first noticed this, and I went to go do a little bit more digging. In the 15 drives with Josh Hoover, TCU has had 10 touchdowns. That's already great. You're already at 66% touchdown clip. Everybody will take that. But let's go ahead and add some more. So you have 10 touchdowns. You have 2 field goals. So now you've taken another step forward where now you're at a 75% scoring clip. So on the 15 drives, TCU has had 10 touchdowns. They've had 12 scoring drives. So 75% of their drives have ended in some sort of points. Then you had 2 more punts and you had 1 interception. That interception was really wonky. It was on a screen pass. I'm not going to call it an absolute fluke, but I just don't think it's a play that you happen to see in this game. I don't think you really see it for the majority of the season. It just was an odd looking play. I don't think that Hoover kind of airs that pass again. It was a screen pass and it just was high. So, that just happens sometimes. But overall, you're looking at it. This is great proficiency. This is absolutely great by the TCU offense. I can't say the same for Jennings and SMU. And if you want to go on an individual level, right, because maybe you just want to say team to team, I thought that we had a crossover with Grayson Singleton yesterday, and I thought he brought up a really good point that Jennings has just been missing the layups. And yes, he has great deep shots, right? Like at the end of the day, he's very, very effective when targeting the deep part of the field, whether that's left, middle, or right. He does a really good job of targeting that part of the field. But if you can't hit the layups, do I really how valuable is that? There's a value to it 100%. But I think that when you can't do the basics, but you can do the specials become a little bit less impressive to a degree, right? Because you get those high highs, but you get the super low lows. If you're going to have high highs, you want to have some lows because that's natural, but you also want to mostly stay in the middle. Steady, right? Like steady gets a real bad connotation, but you need that in your quarterback play. And the fact that I'm getting more inconsistencies from Jennings than Hoover is the reason that I go with Hoover. And this is going from Grayson Singleton words, talking about missing the layups. You don't want that. But then also I was checking out one of his shows, and I was saying this on the crossover, the legs of Kevin Jennings have not been used the way that they used to be used. And I thought I felt that way. I was like, all right, I thought I saw that as well. This is how I felt. And then when you start looking at it, he's not running the ball as much. He's still moving. He's moving around, but he's not running the football as much. It feels as if when he's back there, he's moving to pass. He's not moving to run. And a lot of times you do want to keep your eyes downfield, but the decisiveness and I'm just going to go take off and get it from Jennings has been gone. And I know he still has it. So if you're TCU, you have to be afraid of it. You have to be afraid that he's going to unleash that. But at the same time, recently, in just these 3 games, it feels like he doesn't want to. It feels as if Jennings doesn't want to take off and run. He wants to move around and throw the ball. That's effective, but you got to know when to do both. There are equal skills. You have to know when to do both. And I just feel like Jennings has kind of lost that balance in 2025 so far. So I wanted to do a segment on neutralizing Kevin Jennings and his legs, but it feels like Jennings has neutralized his legs for TCU already. He's not wanting to run the football. So be wary of it because it's still in that back pocket. It's always in that toolbox. But at the same time, I don't think that that's going to be one of the deciding factors. I like Kevin Jennings a lot. I remember watching him last year as SMU pushed towards the playoffs and feeling like this is the model of quarterback I like. Maybe a little bit bigger because he is pretty thin, in my opinion. And I think that the eye test is very impressive with a lot of the things you see. He has deep shots. You see that he has strong athleticism. Some of the way he moves is a little bit weird. Like just to me, it looks disjointed almost. Maybe it's because he's so thin, but it doesn't look smooth, but he gets the job done. This year, he's been moving disjointed and not really getting the job done. Meanwhile, Hoover has been effective on every part of the field. He's been taking what the defense has given him. He's been making plays. He's been throwing tight window passes, right? So you look at, and he's been keeping the ball out of harm's way. Hoover has had two turnover worthy plays, one in each game, right? One against Abilene Christian, one versus North Carolina. But he's had 3 big time throws. And you've seen some nice tight window shots. You've seen some great back shoulder throws, right? Like taking what the defense is giving you is one thing. Making plays is another. And you have a lot of quarterbacks who can only do one. So far through 2 games, Hoover has been able to do both of those on a consistent basis. And it feels like he's really taking a step forward to being one of those guys who can be the engine of your offense every single play if nothing is working for you. And you don't want to ever put your quarterback in that situation. But let's say that Josh Hoover in the running game isn't working for him, right? Let's say that the running game isn't working for SMU or TCU on Saturday, and you need Josh Hoover to be the guy through the fourth quarter who leads you the entire 15 minutes every time you have the ball, and you need Kevin Jennings to do the same thing for SMU. I feel like Hoover has been steadier while Jennings has shown too many inconsistencies. So if it came down to quarterback versus quarterback, which one would you take? Put a blindfold on. Don't look at the names. Don't look at the faces. If it's the guy who's steady, the guy who has avoided as many mistakes versus the guy who has more mistakes, has been more inconsistent, who are you taking? And I understand that that's a slanted way to look at it if it's a blind test, but take the names off, look at the stats. One guy has 2 turnover-worthy plays through 2 games. The other one had 4 versus Baylor alone. To me, that is a great way to showcase Jennings. You're going to get the good, but you're also going to get the bad. And unfortunately, it feels like he hasn't consistently enough hit the middle. I like Jennings. I think he has a lot of potential, but he's going to give some things up as well. Speaking of giving things up, make sure you stay to segment 3 because we're going to talk about how SMU is going to give TCU a lot of opportunities in this game to not only keep it close, but possibly pull away for themselves. We're going to talk about that in segment 3, but segment 2, let's keep it rolling with these matchups. A couple are quarterback adjacent, but they deserve their own shine, so I didn't want to squeeze them in segment 1. Let's do this as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's movement that moved the game forward is Ed Small's second touchdown. That was the 28th point that was scored in the half. It was, in my opinion, a great pass by Josh Hoover, as well as a great catch, great concentration by the freshman, showcased all of the reasons that Coach Dykes is excited about this young player. And I think you're going to see a lot more of him moving forward than originally believed. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. And listen, the weather is cooling down. The weather is cooling down, and we're all ready to start adding patio furniture, ready to go back outside. No more blistering heat. Maybe you stay somewhere other than the South, and you've already been able to start moving into that. But someone in Texas, I'm excited for the weather to drop a little bit so that honestly I can make my home feel even cozier. And when it comes to cozifying your space, Wayfair is the place to go. That's just me, though. That's just me. And if you listen to me, I'm sure that it'll be you as well. It's the perfect time to set up your home for fall so you can enjoy cozy nights in with family and friends. Maybe get some apple cider, get some hot chocolate, watch a movie, right? I know I like to do it. You probably would too. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From cozy recliners to comfy bedding and autumn decor. You'll find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. If you're a second listen, make sure you're checking out Big 12. Like I said, Utah versus Texas Tech. Big time game. You're going to want to hear Drake breaking it down because this is one that you're going to want to flip to every time that TCU and SMU are on a commercial break. But I have a couple of other matchups. We just looked at Jennings versus Hoover, and I think that advantage goes to TCU. But there's a couple of matchups around those quarterbacks that are just as important, and I didn't want to just push them in there. Oftentimes, we talk about the quarterbacks as if they are the entirety of the offense, and they are a big part of the offense, especially if you are a passing team, but they don't decide everything. You need help. Most importantly, you need protection. So let's start there with TCU's offensive line versus SMU's defensive line. Josh Hoover still hasn't been sacked. And if I can say that going into Monday's episode, TCU won. I don't even think that's a conversation. If TCU is able to neutralize the SMU defensive line, both on the edge and the interior, to the point to where Hoover is still clean at the end of the day, that is a sign that Hoover is effective, because that means he's being kept clean, and we know how he can perform when he's not under pressure. It's probably a sign that you're moving well in the run game as well. If you're winning the trenches in this SMU defensive line versus TCU offensive line head to head, right? If TCU's offensive line is able to beat SMU's defensive line, I think that this is I'm not going to say a comfortable game, but it's not one that's coming down to the last possession. Okay. TCU's offensive line has their handful. Don't get me wrong. If you go by PFF grades, they've been phenomenal when it comes to pass blocking. Phenomenal. I think almost every starter is near the high 80s or in the 80s. On run block, not so much. Almost every starter is low. Almost every starter is in the yellows. Now you look at this SMU defensive line specifically in their pass rush. They have guys like Cameron Robertson. They have guys like Isaiah Smith on the edges, and those have 9 and 8 pressures respectfully. But the guy I'm looking at is right there in the middle, big boy Jeffrey Imba. And that guy right there has 6 pressures. And I say 6 pressures as if that's less or that's low because it's less than 9 and 8. But of those pressures, he's turned 3 of them into sacks. So he's the leading sack artist on the team despite not having the most pressures. Now, that is something that we can have conversations about, sacks versus pressure. But someone who's turning half of their pressures into sacks from the interior is an impressive feat. Because let's say through 3 games, he's just averaging 1. Let's just say he keeps that same pace up. That's a 12-sack season. You're looking at a double-digit sack season from the interior if he's able to keep this pace up. He's a force. So you have 2 guys on the edge that are coming around the corner, and you have 1 guy in the middle. TCU's offensive line is definitely going to have their hands full when it comes to pass protection. But if they're able to win this matchup, if they're able to keep Josh Hoover clean, and that doesn't mean allowing 0 sacks. If that happens, they definitely won the matchup. But if they're able to keep Hoover clean, I think he has the ability, I think he has the weapons to really slice up a SMU secondary. And that brings me to my second matchup, Romello Brinson versus Jordan Dwyer. And I understand this isn't a matchup of 2 sides trying to stop each other. This isn't a matchup of 2 sides trying to win against the other. It's more so a matchup of who can perform better when they're on the field, right? SMU secondary versus Jordan Dwyer or TCU secondary versus Romello Brinson. And this is my secondary matchup in the entire game, if we're going to be honest. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see a lot of it because the all 22 is not what you see on the broadcast, right? So you're not going to be able to see when Dwyer is 17 yards down the field. You're not going to be able to see when Brinson is streaking 30 yards down the field. Did Jennings miss him? Right? Here's the thing, though. When it comes to Romello Brinson and it comes to Jordan Dwyer, I know what I'm getting out of both of those guys. I feel like SMU secondary is more of a sure liability. I think they're more of a sure question mark. And quite frankly, I don't care who the secondary is. Jordan Dwyer has shown me the ability to dice up anybody. Right? He did it against North Carolina. He did it against Abilene Christian. He does it again now. We're going to solidify it and say he's the guy. One other thing. I think Jordan Dwyer is on the precipice of being the number 1 wide receiver on this team. And some people may already be ready to crown him as that. But to me, we walked in thinking Eric McAllister would be the guy. In week 1, he wasn't. In week 2, he wasn't. Both of those times, I would say Jordan Dwyer was the more dominant force on the outside, though Joseph Manjack did lead the team in receiving yards in week 2 or game 2. But to me, think that Jordan Dwyer has been the guy who's been the most impressive throughout the season. I think that he's been the go-to guy. And honest and truly, if he has another big-time performance, which he did against North Carolina, he did against Abilene Christian, if once again Jordan Dwyer feels like the top guy, it's no longer that Jordan Dwyer feels like the top guy. He is the top guy. And that just means you have Eric McAllister as a 2. And in my opinion, that's a pretty good receiving core to have Eric McAllister as your 2. And I think that he does eventually get going. It just hasn't happened so far. But Brinson versus the TCU secondary. Here's my thing. There's a lot of reason to be concerned going into this game, but it almost feels like everything that happened in week 1 got tossed out because in my opinion, they played good in week 1 on the outside at corner. But in the second game against Abilene Christian, it wasn't good. And Coach Dykes called them out. So it looks a real way. I just needed it to be solidified, right? You've had 2 games. And I think it's been one side. What's the middle ground? What's the middle ground for TCU? If you've been here and you've been here, where are you at? Are you closer to the Abilene Christian game? Are you closer to the North Carolina game? That's the question for TCU in their secondary. And I could break that down a little bit deeper, but Romello Brinson is coming to town, and Romello Brinson knows how to go down the field. So the cornerbacks have to be on point. So once again, I ask the question. We've seen who you were versus North Carolina. We saw who you were against Abilene Christian. TCU secondary, specifically the corners, are you more week one or are you more game two? That's what we'll find out on Saturday. Something that we should all be looking forward to. Then the last one is TJ Harden and Chris Johnson Jr., but TJ Harden versus the TCU front seven, because that's going to be an important thing. We talked about this yesterday. A shootout goes in favor of TCU. If we're out here trying to go score for score every single game, or excuse me, every single drive, I think that favors TCU. And I think Grayson really saying that kind of exemplifies that one is the steadier offense. One is the steadier offense, but you want to limit their opportunities. And in that, SMU is going to try to run the football because the best defense can be a good offense at times. Harden has been great. I know he didn't have a big game week one, but against Baylor, he had 19 carries for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. Against Missouri State, he had 15 carries for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you're looking at over the course of 2 weeks, he's at about over 5 yards a clip. He's at about 300 total yards and 5 touchdowns. That's a really good day. That's a really good pair of games. So this is a talented guy. I like in the middle Anza Demba. Anza Demba to me is a real force on the interior. So I'm looking at him being the guy who mucks up the area. I'm looking at him being the guy who penetrates, because it's not like he just holds blocks. He knows how to get through. He shoots the gap really well. I'm looking at him being the guy who gets through and really disrupts the rhythm of these running plays on a consistent basis. So you're going to need your front line to be on point, because they are going to run TJ Harden. Let's be very clear. They're going to run TJ Harden. And as for TCU and their running back situation, last time that I checked, I don't remember seeing any positive updates about Kavorian Barnes or negative updates. I just don't remember seeing anything about Barnes. I'm checking right now. Nothing. The last update you're getting is 2 days ago. They said that Thursday we'd feel more confident. Make sure I'm going to do one last search. Make sure I'm not missing anything. But it does seem like we just don't know about Barnes. So I'm not going to belabor that point again. But yeah, I'm not seeing any update. No update about Barnes. No update about Barnes so far. So it's still, he's questionable. They said they have a better idea on Thursday. They just didn't share it with anybody, and that's okay. We'll find out tomorrow. But anyway, in the meantime, let's keep rolling, and let's get into our third segment, because SMU is going to give you a chance. They are going to shoot themselves in the foot, and they're going to give TCU a chance to not only stay in this game, but possibly pull ahead. And we're going to look at that as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. And listen, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday, DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. So let's break it down. From TCU, honestly, I'm going to go with Josh Hoover, because he had 4 touchdowns on the day. The TCU offense put up 28 points in the first half. In the first half, it already felt like, all right, it's over. You heard a suspension of disbelief in the movies where you got to act like something, like you don't know what's going to happen just so you can enjoy it. That's what it was like when Hoover was on the field with the offense. Had to act like you didn't know what was going to happen, knowing doggone well that he was about to score a touchdown. Went 6 for 6 in that department. So just like Hoover delivered for the Frogs, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250. And that includes $100 in DoorDash credits, so you can go right back to doing what you was doing. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. And whether that's the local sports bar packed on game day so you can watch TCU whenever you want in the heart of Fort Worth, or the coffee shop that knows your order by heart. Matter of fact, they know a time that you'll be there to pick it up too. Or maybe it's the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. So these are local spots that make the neighborhood feel like home. You want to use Square to support them. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/locked-on-college to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did it. Square. See you in the neighborhood. As wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. We'll be going live directly after the Iron Skillet, so same as last week, we're back on it, back in it. Iron Skillet, let's see if TCU is going home with it for the first time or for the last time. But I think they have a good chance because SMU is going to shoot themselves in the foot. I want to be as blatant as possible. I believe that SMU is going to give TCU every chance to win this game. And I'm mostly basing that off of the amount of penalties that they've had. The amount of penalties that the Mustangs have had over the first 3 games is truly concerning. And it's over a 3-game sample size to make me feel like this is just who you are. Now, I know we've had big-time penalty games from certain teams. Oh, that was an aberration. You've had big-time penalty games in the beginning of the year. Can they clean that up? We're 3 games in. We are 3 games in, and through 3 games, they had 8 penalties for 84 yards versus East Texas A&M, 6 penalties for 55 yards against Baylor, and a whopping 12 penalties for 130 yards versus Missouri State. At this point, we just have to question the discipline of SMU. And I don't have to go through those 26 penalties over 3 games. That's almost 9 a game. I don't have to go through all of those penalties to know that they have a bunch of different penalties that they're suffering. I'm sure they got pre-snap penalties. I'm sure they got offense penalties, defense penalties, DPI, holding, illegal procedure, death penalties. I mean, killer penalties, like just basically penalties that'll really cost them. Not like SMU knows much about death penalties, but you're looking at a situation where SMU is definitely giving up first downs due to penalty. They're definitely taking away their first downs due to penalties. That's the situation that you're stepping into. So when I say that the Mustangs are going to give the Horned Frogs an opportunity, that's what I'm pointing to. Because when you have that many mistakes, you're shooting yourself in the foot that many times. You're destined to be in some 3rd and longs. You're destined to put yourself in 2nd and shorts. You're destined to put yourself behind the sticks and really be in a must-pass situation. TCU has to focus on playing clean football. I should have looked up where exactly TCU stood. I will, actually. I'll do that now and look at where TCU stands as far as penalties, just as a way to compare. Because I didn't even think about it. But I do know SMU is really bad with it. I do know that SMU is really bad. So let's see if TCU may be just as bad. Now you're just looking at 2 bad teams. Let's see. Penalties. Nothing. TCU only has 2 penalties? Wow. 2 penalties? That's kind of crazy. I'll be honest with you. 2 penalties would actually be insane. No, that's not. Oh, yeah, that's the opponent. They have not had 2 penalties. Oh, yeah. They have not had 2 penalties. But either way, neither North Carolina or Abilene Christian. I'm trying to read off the Frogs website. And some people go team opponent, some go opponent team. Either way, the most penalties by North Carolina, Abilene Christian, or TCU has been 5 in a game. That's it. 5 penalties in a game. Like this is a more disciplined team. But, and the numbers support that. But anyway, the point is SMU is going to present opportunities to take advantage of. If they're ahead, I think they're going to continue to shoot themselves in the foot. And now it's about TCU taking advantage of those, whether it's a DPI when you're trying to stretch the field, or if it's a roughing the passer, or if it's whatever. And this is a heated game. This is a heated game where discipline is important. And we can talk about between the whistle, but what about the unsportsmanlike conduct? You're going to see that at some point. One team is going to have an unsportsmanlike conduct, at least one team. It's the final Iron Skillet. These two teams don't like each other. You're going to see this at least once, maybe multiple times. You can't be the team that falls victim to it. But, excuse me, this is going to be a big-time game. Look for the matchup of Jennings versus Hoover, the head-to-head between quarterbacks that I do think favors the Frogs. Look at another head-to-head between players at the same position, Romello Brinson and Jordan Dwyer. I like Dwyer a lot. I want to see if he's able to keep up his streak against another P4 opponent. TCU's offensive line versus SMU's defensive line, as well as the front seven of the Frogs versus the running attack of TJ Harden and Chris Johnson Jr. These are matchups and pivotal storylines to watch. We'll be back after the game to recap live our instant analysis, and I'll probably also look at some of the Big 12 games to watch in that upcoming, I guess 2 slots that'll be after TCU. So come join. Let's have a little fun. Let's kick it. All right, let's kick it after the game. And in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.